With my 20th birthday recently having been a factor in my life, I figured it was time to go ahead and sit down and start thinking about several things in life as it is. Currently, I am not in any particular college, but I may be soon, and to be quite frank, I am also, shall we say, a bit of a thinker. I like to think about things for long periods of time. I have known to talk to myself on occasion, out loud, mind you, and I've also, on occasion, been known to act a little bit crazy. But then again, things happen. You can't really expect these sort of things just to go unnoticed. At any particular rate, I decided that since I turned 20, it's time to talk about a few things that I really just kind of wanted to get off my chest. But there's so many ways to talk about this, and I figured, what's the best way to come on the computer and do this? Why make it into a voiceover, of course. Now, of course, as you can see here, I have pictures and whatnot, but I want you to hang with me just for a second. This won't take maybe any more than 5 minutes. Just follow me on this one here. In the past 20 years that I've been alive, there have been major changes in the world. Changes in the way we do communications, such as our cell phones going from giant bricks that were overpriced and could easily break a window, to small little tiny paperweights that can break if you drop them on the ground just a few centimeters above the floor. And also, we've gone from an era in which telecommunications was so flawed into the fact that a single telephone tap could take a few minutes, into where now it can take a couple seconds if you have the right telecommunications network servicing program. On the same token, we also have massive social upheaval in the past few years alone, and let's put it completely bluntly, every single one of these social upheavals has either been caused by people who really had good intentions and may have fallen short, had good intentions and did not fall short but were eventually killed off later, and even those who did manage to succeed were possibly, and in some cases brutally, overthrown later cases. But it all comes back around to one very important thing. People, from time to time, just need time to acclimate. Sometimes change comes too rapidly for people to think about it. Sometimes change comes too rapidly for anybody to even have a chance to, shall we say, even believe that it will come. Think about the past 100 years, for instance. We've gone from the invention of the airplane in 1903, all the way up to the invention of spaceflight in 1960, and now we have, of course, as everyone knows, the modern internet with Twitter, Facebook, and all that jazz in 2005, and those whereabouts coming around, and of course YouTube, which you are watching this video on besides. Try to keep in mind that even 10 years ago, being 2002, this kind of thing would have been considered pretty much impossible by those standards at the time. However, you'd be surprised how quickly technology can leap forward. And as such, many things have changed over the years, including and not limiting themselves to online piracy. With all the talk of SOPA and PIPA you've probably heard over the past couple of months, I'm not going to preach about that because there are many people who could talk at length better and longer about it than I could, and I don't want to bore you with any of the details. But I do believe that piracy is indeed a big issue. However, I believe that a lot of the foreseen piracy is oftentimes because the companies who the people are trying to pirate the copyrighted content off of are not giving the content to the people who want it legally. They are willing to pay good money for it, and yet the companies who have the content are not allowing them access to it. Not necessarily that it couldn't be done, but simply because they do not wish to access it out to foreign markets or the like. Now granted, this doesn't mean that you should go ahead and use things on an illegal note. However, in an age where we've gone from where Donkey Kong steals princesses to where he's hanging around with Diddy Kong and smashing around tiki people, we really need to start thinking about how we go ahead and reorganize ourselves. Keeping in mind here, every single thing that I've said so far has been with a slight edge of humor, but this one thing I must say for certain. We must reform the way we do business in the world, because the world is one unified network and system. We can no longer treat it as if each individual country has no idea what the other is doing. And we can no longer treat individuals in the countries as though they were, shall we say, emancipated individuals from each other. Indeed, they are individuals, but we must treat each other as equals. Because if we do not, we run the risk of going ahead and destroying each other like so many generations before that. And, despite all the constant strife and struggle in the past few decades alone, we have tried to maintain a relative stable decorum about not going into war that isn't necessary. As such, we haven't had a world war in more than 60 years, 70 by some counts, and, going ahead and keeping that in mind, we really should be glad that we haven't had anything in the form of an actual nuclear war at this point. and that surely shows that we are doing a bit better than many of our previous generations. But, as I said earlier, a lot of the problems that are underlying right now need to be reformed, because a lot of the systems that are in place aren't necessarily bad, they simply need to be updated in order to fit with the times. And believe me, the way things are advancing right now, there is no way anyone will be able to keep up if they don't start now. Things are advancing too rapidly and too massively for people to begin to even think to keep up with any of these expeditions that are going forward. In other words, it's all about progress. Such as how Pokemon has gone from 150 all the way up to 649, we must learn to broaden our horizons as well, allowing each and every single individual thing that we come into contact with to become an acceptable part of our lives. Now granted, bad things will still happen, but we have to learn to overcome them and accept each other's differences for what they are, lest we run into the follies of our previous ancestors.